Okay, that demonstration was a little bit on the fast side, so we've got about 10-12 minutes here just to go over the basic technique, right? If you've seen the earlier video, you'll get an idea of what's involved with the ellipses at the top of a cylindrical form. We make sure we're the right width as drawn in the two-dimensional view, and we increase the height, the thickness, the fatness, the roundness of the bottom ellipse to give it this three-dimensional impression. So what we're doing here is working our way down the form, looking at the lower half and making for bigger, deeper, fatter, fuller ellipses. The lower cylinder we're working on at the moment now is the same diameter as the one above, so has to be a wider version of the one up above. It's a little bit more awkward when we get to the bottom. I've actually cropped the video to show you the bottom edge, but you'll see it firming up in a minute or two. Each time then, the ellipse getting fuller on the way down. The width stays the same. The width and the heights are set from the two-dimensional view. That two-dimensional sketch, your starting point, is essential in this. And you can see on the right hand side, we've got a couple waiting to move forward. More complex forms, it's sometimes easier to firm in the three-dimensional step by step as you're going down, but we've gone for the whole thing here, just making sure we're firming the visible and we leave the hidden, not the invisible, but the hidden lines behind. So at the moment these are sort of firming in outlines. The grip has changed significantly from the earlier sketches. We're now holding the pencil or pen down near the top. And we're hearing here that the lines, these parallel, these vertical lines for the side of the cylinder are basically building on the ones we've got, then leading off that front edge, the visible edge of the lower ellipse. We then have the change in diameter, the thicker cylinder at the bottom, so we're picking it up, remember it disappearing behind, trying to work our way around. Bigger ellipses, often better drawn from inside. These little ones, maybe get away with this just today, just working them around much the same way as we did the freehand. So should be turning the page here, but we're taking a few shortcuts because of the way the camera is mounted up on top and unable really to do a lot of page movement. So we're now looking at outlining. That was all construction. Now really outlining, as we've been showing just the last couple of minutes on the previous one. We'll move that on to the thicker pen. So again, the thicker pen, if you're working with ink, it's easier to get one with a wider nib. If you're working with pencil, it just takes a little bit more time, or a slightly blunter pencil tip. And this is just the outline. That's the outline, the line between the object and the background. Again, it's a graphic technique, as very few things in life have a black line round about it naturally. This is just to lift it off the page. But as well as the outline, we're taking our time just a little bit neater, just tidying up a few lines, squaring things up, softening off curves. But we've also got this internal line. That's a shadow line, but we know there to be a surface, but it's hidden underneath. So we've got the basic outline here. We're going to do the same construction. We're going to go for the lighter grip. Pencil or pen being held loosely. We're taking the widths from the existing two-dimensional view. But remember, each time we produce an ellipse, it's got to be fuller, fatter, rounder. In other words, the vertical height of that ellipse will be getting bigger. And it's getting kind of big when we get down towards the bottom here. Now this object has a cylindrical part below a conical parts, and then it's got a hemisphere. Hemisphere, half a sphere, can be a little bit intimidating to draw, but a hemisphere, or a sphere in itself, is always seen as a circle. So it's actually one of the easiest three-dimensional objects to sketch. It's a little bit more tricky to render, right enough. You see, turning the page here, it's a little bit more awkward to try and find the image on the screen. However, just reinforcing this is a hemispherical, a half a sphere on the underside. It's a bit of a wobbly design. Certainly something that's been used a lot in the past, but we need some sort of mount or fixing point to keep it straight. So we're going for the outline on this particular view. So change of pen, wider tip, and we're just again trying to pick up and work a smooth join, turning the page this time because of the number of curves, and outside edge, just the outside edge at the moment. This one's got very few, if any, internal shadow lines. So watching this curve, I just missed it off the bottom of the screen there, but it was working. Now there's those little shadow lines, so that conical part actually goes into. Now the top could be a separate part, so it may have its own outline. Unfortunately, at the moment, the video camera's in the wrong place. So we've gone from 2D view to 3D view in 2 examples. If you have a look at the light bulb shape on the right hand side, and just imagine the steps we're going to make for that one. We've got a fairly big change between the cylindrical parts, quite small and detailed on top, and then the curved edge going from a curved cone, if you like, to a hemispherical base, or actually it's probably bigger than a hemisphere. So same approach, and you can see already that that 3-dimensional appearance is starting to build up. A little bit more refined pen work around here. These are really being used to help with rendering later on, these extra curves to help if we come to render this particular object. I think you maybe get a sense of its 3-dimensional form so far. Again, just looking at the outline, picking out the edge between the object and the background, the internal curve coming here, turning the page to make life a little bit easier, so the verticals are easier. And these curves, when we come to the big curve, working more from the inside. Unfortunately, the camera is not quite best placed to pick that one up, but you'll see the result once the image moves back around to the view. A couple of lines to put in to finish this off. So primarily 2D, height and width, okay, 2-dimensional drawing. Then we're going to use these ellipses to build up the turned or conic or spherical forms, outlining and shadow lining, and then we come on to the one, you could certainly take tracings at this point, but we're going on to render these straight onto the colour paper. Remember, it's a different grip, pencil grip for rendering, significantly different. And in this case, I'm going to start unusually with the white. This is a reflective band, and it's in different positions depending on the diameter of the bar. So you can see how it's shifting in and out at different heights. Bottom and top one, so the second top and the bottom one are the same size, so the highlights will line up pretty similar. Now, I wouldn't normally do this because you're normally working on white paper, but I thought I'd give you a wee chance to try something. In fact, I started doing this sketching when I was a student on wrapping paper from IKEA. I always bought a product, but always ended up with too much wrapping paper. So just a coloured paper or card in the background would be an interesting medium to draw on. So using the 3 or 4B pencil just to build up tone, again using that render grip, using the side of the tip of the pencil, and building up the right hand side first. This is a habit more than anything else because realistically both sides will be done fairly similar. It's a little bit more awkward to do because I'm working forward rather than towards myself. Normally working by turning the page, we'll just put a quick shadow or darkness on that edge, a little bit darker on that edge. We're going to build up tone on this, so there'll be a significant difference at the end of the image. Remember, light predominantly in all the images I'm working on, let's see, comes from the top left, so the right and lower surfaces will be darker. It's difficult to get right first time, so it's better to get the habit of building this tone up, building this shade on the dark side. Start light and build it darker. You can always make things darker. It's difficult to make things lighter. So you can see already we're building up that darker right hand side. A little bit of shadow from the upper cylinder just on that flat surface there. We'll do some work on the lower one as well. And that just reinforces the flat nature of that particular form. A little bit of a shadow, it's an overhang, so a little bit of a shadow underneath there. The shape would be slightly different in reality, but that little collar I put on there is just to indicate there's a darker overhang there. And all the top vertical surfaces, rather than having the same colour as the paper, just with a little bit of grey on there. The leading edge, the edge nearest the light source, I'm just putting a little bit of a highlight or reflection just on the edges where you get a point reflection on a sharp edge. And we can look at a little bit more detail at reflections later on. Now, predominantly cylinders, but the object to our right has cones, a little bit of a cylinder in there as well, but it's also got this hemisphere. So we're going to start with the grey. The more normal approach this time is to get that fanning action, starting from the top, this radiating down, gradually getting steeper towards the middle, but starting certainly parallel with the edge, and then fanning its way around. Again, fairly even right and left at the moment. Cylinder, working parallel in the vertical, getting lighter towards the centre, and then the darker edge. It's a little bit too much press, I think, at the moment on that one there. When it comes to the underside, that sphere, we're going to have to work on a more of a scoop type nature of the rendering, where the underside will always be darker. That's not the best position. I should have turned the page for this, but just following the contours, the edge on the right hand side getting darker, predominantly toward the right hand side being darker, significantly darker than the left hand side. I'm trying to blend the conic section, the conic sloping sides, to the vertical sides, to the hemisphere on the other side. Again, building up the tone, and you can see there the right hand side, bit like the object on the left hand side there, is starting to look a little bit more intense, a little bit darker on the right hand side, as it would be if the light was coming, as always, from the top left. Well, we had some white on the cylindrical object on the left there. We could try the same thing, but we're just going to try and beef up or give a little bit more definition to the edges. A little bit of a shadow cast from that top conic section onto the little rim up there, and then I've moved down towards the point a little bit more to get more pressure on that pencil. But again, it's the side of the tip of the pencil. So this highlight, there we go. And again, where it's similar, you can see a change in direction. The cylindrical part is vertical, the conic part is slightly. Final touches now on the highlights, on the light edge, using the soft white pencil. White pencils, it's worth getting a reasonably expensive one if you're buying one yourself. I think this one cost about £4, but it's lasted me about 4 years. So you look after a soft white pencil. Most white pencils aren't particularly good. Okay, finish this off. We're going to add a little bit of a shadow, just to lock it down to a surface. So taking the front and back edges, around about 30-degree slope or so, and a scoop at the top to see the cylinder, slight change in diameter to a basic cylindrical shadow on there. Again, there's more information on the 2D charts. For this one though, we have an elliptical shadow that projects underneath towards the right as well as to the left. This is because of the undercut on a sphere, then the cylindrical part, and then possibly a little taper at the top. We just make it a little bit more dense underneath the object. So we've got a couple of quick renders, a couple of 3 ideas, still got a light bulb to finish off. Hopefully this has helped a little bit. Play it back, enjoy your drawing.